Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Teamwork a Better Way. I'm Christian Napier, and I am joined by the festively fall-colored Spencer Horn. Spencer, how you doing?
I am doing great. As I said on Monday, I got thwarted doing my mountain trail to go see the colors, and so we're going to try to do that again. You and I talked about conference weekend, which is a big deal for us here, and so yes, I am celebrating fall. Good to be with you. Uh, so always excited to have more than one time a week where I get to see Christian. That's a good life when that happens.
Yeah, Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, has a McDonald's routine that he does, and he talks about the French fries and how after you eat the fries, you look in the bag and you see the bonus fry. Like, wow. And that's what we have this week. We have like the bonus fry of podcasts, super excited to actually have
Exactly.
multiple times in one week. And we've got an amazing guest
We do.
to end the week on a high note. So, Spencer, why don't you go ahead and do the introductions?
Yes, today we have Jana Franklin. I'm going to go ahead and put her on screen while I talk about her in front of her face here. So, Jana, you're coming to us from St. Louis, Missouri. Is that right? If I recall,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
You.
and it is not fall here at all.
It's not.
No,
I
we're
I am
90
flying
here.
there on Tuesday. I will be in St. Louis on Tuesday, so I'm going to check it out. Make sure I was just there like last week, and it was sure beautiful. I love going through the Missouri hills. I drove from Kansas City down to Jefferson City. Just such a beautiful country, and I lived in Missouri for a few years. God's country for sure. But we're so excited to have you and. Jana is an owner at multiple franchises, and she is somebody that is a if I see this right, she's a serial entrepreneur, and so she has so much experience in business. And in 2023, she embarked on a new journey and started a virtual assistant. A concierge virtual assistant company, and she's actually flying Christian to the Philippines next week to meet with what 68 of your team members there.
Yeah, I'm going to them this time. I'm going to hit the three Providences and hang out with them, do some team building, do some charity work, and do some strategy.
See, that's the kind of stuff that I'm excited to hear, and I really, we're going to talk to you and really help our listeners understand your motivation to start this because, as an entrepreneur and also working in entrepreneur organizations like EO and I know women's groups that you support.
Hmm.
There are so many challenges that entrepreneurs, business owners, business leaders face in terms of burnout and just not letting go of control. And so you really have a lot of experience of that, which I know is one of the motivations for you starting this concierge VA. And we'll talk about that, but really the thing that I'm excited about, she's just incredible energy. She's, we have a topic today, Christian, that you and I, when we were trying to, figure out which one of the many things that she can talk about in terms of business, I think is really important. And that is breaking the mold of how women are, rewriting the rules of entrepreneurship. And
Hmm.
I'm really excited to ask you a bunch of questions, and I know that Christian is as well. So let's jump right in. So start with, how do you reshape the mold of entrepreneurship as a woman?
Oh,
Where does that come from, and how did that get started for you?
okay. You just started with the biggest question, right? You just went right for it. Um, Gosh, so I really think if it now that I'm in my 50s, I really took
What?
a look at, yeah, I'm in my 50s. I I really think it comes for me, it came from my upbringing.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized that probably until the last 10 years, maybe even 5 years. My grandmothers, both my grandmothers, I grew up in Nebraska, very small state, very conservative state, very, it's farm centric. The difference is growing up in Lincoln, it was the capital, it was the university. So I do think that um, that allowed for the education and the support of women in business. My grandmother started a real estate company in the 50s supporting the university students. She was buying single family homes and renting them out to college students. And my sister actually still runs that company to this day. And then my other grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was a piano teacher, an accountant. She was doing whatever needed to be done in her community. And so I think that I just had very strong women in my life. My mother was a CPA. She had her own firm. And so I just saw that it was capable, that it was capable, that women were capable to do this, that I didn't think anything different of it. My dad had, I have sisters. I have a sister. That's it. And my dad always said, girls can do anything boys can do, and probably better. So I kind of always have that in the back of my head. Of course, I have all boys. so I have to be careful
I'm
sometimes on that.
sorry. I'm sorry. That's a whole nother challenge.
It is, but you know what? I think I'm better off for having all boys, because I don't think I would have, given what's going on with girls in this day and age. I don't know if I have the patience to put up with some of the stuff that my friends put up with. But for me, I think like it's definitely the upbringing that I had, but also I'm assertive, and so I to my husband's chagrin, I take risk and I kind of jump before I sometimes think about what I'm doing. And it's bode well for me for the most part. But there has been times where I have definitely learned from those mistakes.
So this is
And
exactly what I wanted. Thank you. I'm sorry that I went for the big thing, but I really meant to get this background. I love this, and I think one of the things that I'm so excited about is, so often we say, well, we don't want to go back to those old days. I love so many. I mean, even in my family and my wife's family, there are so many great models of strong and independent thinking and powerful women. And they raised great families. They run great business. They worked in government and community. What I'm really interested in, what you just said here, is that you're assertive. I think, you've had some great parenting and grandparenting, and that certainly contributed. You came to this earth with your own personality, but that probably contributed to it. I'm curious if, as a woman, that there's an unfair kind of response to assertiveness from a woman compared to a man, and, right? Because in men, it's like, yeah, way to go, assertive. But when you're assertive, is there a different standard?
oh, for sure. For sure. Um, I, yes. I was not always the first person to be picked in a lot of things. It's probably still to this day, right? I think people will be like, hey, call Jana, she'll get it done. But she's also going to tell you, she's going to tell you she's going to tell you what she thinks about it too. So be prepared for that. Yes, it is to an unfair advantage. I think the difference for me is my degree is in fashion merchandising. I was in retail. I was in fashion, and I was in a very women dominated industry. So for me, I think that also allowed I had very strong general merchandise managers over me, female, right? And so for me, I did not encounter the boardroom conversations that you hear about still today, that women are not taken as seriously in the room as men are. I don't encounter that. I have not encountered that for the most part in my positions in my world. However, I have encountered it in dealing with other entrepreneurs, men entrepreneurs more so. I definitely see that men entrepreneurs, and I'm saying this very general, in my experience, there is a very big difference of how men run their companies versus women. And so I do see that difference. But I've been in rooms where if I'm saying something, it's maybe being considered emotional versus if a guy's saying it, it might be saying the exact same thing. It's not considered emotional. And that is definitely, I think, where you hear these stories of women getting frustrated in the professional world because of that.
I'd like to kind of riff on that a little bit. In the write-up for this, Janet, Spencer put in there that what we wanted to do is, among other things, is explore the evolving face of leadership. So in your career, having started out from, in this fashion business to now you're running multiple businesses, what does that mean to you, this evolving face of leadership, and how have you seen leadership change over the last several decades?
Well, I think it's really important to understand in leadership, to understand the people you're leading. I do think, my mother and I had this conversation a couple weeks ago. She's considered a traditionalist. She is not a baby boomer. She's the generation before baby boomer. She asked me the other day what I was. She didn't remember. I told her. I was telling her about it.
We're all three of us are Gen Xers here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I said to her, I was telling her a story about one of my general managers in the Jimmy John's. And I said to her, she goes, well, how are you going to handle that? And I said, well, I'm handling him different because he is a Gen Zer and he takes information in differently, and I have to explain more to him. I have to validate. Those are things that I have learned the hard way as I have grown in my leadership roles, of that you can't talk and lead everyone the same way. And I think it's gotten more prevalent as the years have gone on, as you have more generations in the workforce right now than you did prior. So when I was, in May Company, I was dealing with several generations, just maybe two. And I could talk to them I could lead them the same way. I didn't really have to change my delivery. I didn't have to wear different hats, and I could be kind of monotone. Now I cannot. Before we got on this call today, I was down talking with one of my general managers at one of my stores because he's having some personality conflicts. And so he and I talked about leadership and what that looks like, and how I do it versus how he does it. And he's in his 20s. I'm in my 50s. So we have a lot of differences. So you have to change, you have to evolve with how the workforce is evolving, but more importantly, how they want to be led. And I think that for me, it was always lead by example, lead by example, lead by example, which I still do. But I can't tell even my kids, my 18-year-old versus my 14-year-old, I cannot parent them the same way. It's the same thing in the workforce as a leadership. I cannot talk to and lead my 40-year-old manager the same way I lead my 25-year-old manager. It just doesn't work. And so that is what I have learned over the time. And that's where I also am very interested in. I've read some books, I have listened to some speakers, some TED Talks, whatever, about leading multiple generations.
It's interesting. I think there has a lot changed. There may have been some generations, decades ago, but it didn't matter because businesses you stayed with the same company for a long time. And today, there's so much pressure our generation stays with a company maybe 2 years, but the Gen Z you're talking about, if they don't like you, they're gone in 2 weeks. And so, right.
Well, I don't even get 2 weeks sometimes. So yes,
Right. So you
I
know what
love.
I'm talking about. And so
Uh-huh.
it's interesting because you have this natural assertive style. And what I heard you say is, you know, that doesn't work in all circumstances. There's a
Yeah.
great study by the Hay McBear Consulting Group, and they researched almost 4,000 executives worldwide. So all industries, all countries, race, gender didn't matter, and they identified 6 leadership styles. This is a study that's available, and Daniel Goleman often refers to, and identified 6 leadership styles. Coercive and authoritative probably come natural to you, right? And authoritative is actually a positive one. It's about creating vision. Here's where we're going. I'm excited. Come with me. I mean, that's. Um,
Hmm.
but pace setting, high standards, striving, hardworking, probably also good for you. But
Hmm.
they're the other three, and all 3 of those are very task oriented. The other 3, uh, uh, affiliative, really getting people to work together and collaborate and support different departments, coaching, and democratic. Those are all people oriented, and sometimes some personalities really struggle with those other 3 if they're naturally task oriented, or if you're naturally very people oriented, you struggle with being assertive, right, or authoritative, or
Hmm.
coercive every once in a while if you need to be. And that's a very rare situation where you need that, but sometimes it's needed. And they found that the best leaders were able to adapt, not just occasionally, but every single week being able to adapt. And so what I'm hearing you say is the ability, leadership has to be very self-aware. Leadership has to adapt to the environment, to the market, to the labor base, to the boardroom, to everything that's going on around, based on what you're doing, if you're wanting to be successful.
100%. I mean, I think this is probably where we get burned out, right, as leaders, because we are having to adapt. But they're also, I look at it like, yes, it's exhausting sometimes, but at the same time, the alternative is worse,
You're
right?
so right. Yeah. And you're right. It does take energy. I guarantee you that it takes energy for you to be patient with that Gen Zer.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Right. It's actually burning your energy. Right. Like, okay, I gotta be. And those boys, to change your approach, it's like, okay, I need to go get a coffee, or I need to take a little nap. But that's the problem, is that we don't realize where the drain is coming from and actually plan for it. I'd really like to hear your thoughts on that.
You are so hitting it on the head. So this person that I had to deal with this morning, I knew about this issue last week. I was out of town last week. So I let him know on Wednesday that I would be coming down to see him on Friday. I didn't tell him when. I knew he had lunch rush, so I was going to be aware of that and everything. I just said, look, I will be to you on Friday. I'm not ignoring you, blah, blah, blah. And so, but I gave myself the grace to prepare myself to go down and have that conversation with him. So I mentally prepared myself, because it's not, because of the patience, right? That is not in my wheelhouse. My patience level is not there. Um, and I mean, I definitely have learned it with my children. So I try and take some of that with me into my management with Gen Zers, Gen Alphas. But I give myself the time, and I give myself to put myself in that mindset to be able to go handle it, and handle it very well. And I think that's what we don't do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I know, Christian, you got a comment. Can I just put up a comment we've had from a listener?
Yep. Let's do
I
it.
don't know who this is. It says LinkedIn user, but thank you for chiming in. And whoever this is says, on and off the dance floor, yes, leaders must be who their followers need them to be. Good leaders don't expect followers to be able to meet the leader where they are.
Yeah.
You right? Because maybe they haven't learned that yet. We're supposed to be the ones that know how to adapt to them, right? Thank you, whoever that is.
100. Yeah. I mean, I have teenagers, high schoolers, middle schoolers working in our stores, and they're sponges. they want to know, they want to learn. And then you've got, the college kid that's like, I just need the money. I'm here for the money. And then you've got the people that, are I have a slew of moms who come and work lunch while their kids are in school. It's yeah, they all need, I need to meet them, not them
That
meet
is
me.
different than decades ago, don't you think, Christian?
Yes, but at the same time, I think that and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this here, Jana. Are there certain principles that could be considered timeless? You know, I'm thinking about Stephen Covey's Seven Habits. Hard to believe that thing's been out like over 35 years, right?
Yeah.
And when you're talking, the conversation that you guys have been having reminded me of one of those habits, which was seek first to understand, then to be understood, right? Developing empathy. That takes effort. It does take energy. Sometimes it can be harder to understand people across generations because, in many cases, we don't even use the same vocabulary to describe our world. But the principle, I think, is a timeless principle. So I'm curious to hear from you, Jana. As you look at leadership, although some things have evolved over time, are there certain principles that you have found that for you they are bedrock and they are not
Mhm.
changing?
Yes. For me, integrity. Integrity is a huge thing. You say you're going to do something, you do something. If you agree to it and you change the deal, you need to talk to the people who you made the deal with. That's a big one for me. Um, I think compassion is a big one. Um, but compassion with a sense of direction. And what I mean by that is, you know, you do have, I do have employees that don't know what they want out of life and they're trying to figure it out. And I'm compassionate to a certain point, but there's still a job to do. And you still need to show up because that's what you said you were going to do. So it ties back into integrity. But I think that for me, those are the two big ones. Respect. I I just, we all have things going on in our lives. We don't know what's going on in each other's lives, and we have to give uh, we have to give that empathy and support them. But at the same time, we have to have those boundaries or guidelines. And I think that those to me are timeless. Lead by example is timeless. I think lead by example is timeless. I mean, there are other franchisees in my franchise that don't understand why they have issues but they're never present. And it's like, well, that saying, inspect what you expect. I mean, that's it, right? And so you can't lead if you're not in the front.
Isn't that great for to be able to take a little drink? But Jana, so what you're talking about right now is balancing empathy with accountability. So you talked about boundaries, right? You talked about that maybe your franchises don't have that problem. So how are you creating those boundaries? How are you creating that accountability and balancing that with empathy? How do you do that?
Well, if you ask my team today, they'd probably say I'm doing it pretty good. If you asked my team yesterday, they'd probably say I sucked at it. I mean,
Oh, but
it's a
there you go.
balance.
You're human, right?
Yes. And I think that goes back to the compassion and the empathy, right? We are human. We are going to have issues. We don't know what's going on in each other's life. However, here is the expectation of what you signed up for when you decided to work for us, and we're going to support you. But if you're not following the guidelines and the boundaries, then we can't help you. We can't support you. So I'm all for it. Look, I have loaned money. I have bought cars. I've gotten cars stolen. So I sometimes have issues with boundaries as well. But the accountability has to be there, and you have to. the biggest thing I think is the consistency, right? You can be empathetic and you can have the accountability, but if you're not consistent from one person to another, that all goes out. It all gets thrown out the window, because then favoritism starts coming into play, whether you're doing it or not. That is the perception. And so you have to stay consistent, and the only way to be consistent is the accountability and the boundaries, is to utilize those.
Yeah, I figured out who our commenter was. He had another comment. It's Robert Snyder. I don't know if you know Robert, but Robert says he's nodding. Let's strive for high discipline and high empathy. Let's reject chaos and cruelty. Thank you, Robert, for joining the conversation.
The other thing I wanted to say from something earlier is, yes, I am with the Jimmy Johns, I am a B2C business. Customers come in, pay for my service. My customers, for me as the owner, is really my employees. For me, for this company, because I can't affect, well, I can to a certain extent. I can't affect my traffic. I can affect my employees, because that's who's treating our customers. So if
which impacts traffic for your store.
Correct. And so it goes back to what he just said about the chaos and cruelty. I have to say this, I don't have any employees that are going to work for free. But that's not an expectation either. Like, I can't fathom having, and I know I have hired people that are like, oh, I didn't get paid for the last 2 weeks with my former employee. I can't fathom that, and minus the legality of it. But that's compassion and empathy, and also the leadership, right? That's integrity. You're here to work, you're going to get paid. So I just think that we have to be careful. We have to understand who our customers are as leaders.
Agreed.
I want to come back to something, Jana, that you said earlier, and it kind of ties into this accountability concept. But you mentioned when you were telling, kind of giving the background on yourself, that people will refer to you, say, hey, well, yeah, have her, Jana, do it because she'll get it done, right? So execution is critical. And I am curious to know from you where that quality of execution comes from, because there are a lot of people that have some great ideas, but at the end of the day, they just can't really deliver on their promises, right? And so, where does that come from? And in your view, what is the secret sauce to making sure that you deliver?
Oh my gosh. I'm not sure where it comes from. So, I used to love multitasking, right? Probably in my 30s, late 30s, 40s, I was like, oh, I'm the queen of multitasking. I can do it. Okay. That doesn't exist. I totally flipped the switch on that. I was doing everything, but not doing anything good. And so I think for me, it's really about, if you're going to ask me to do something and I'm going to say yes and I'm going to do it, it's because I want to do it and because I believe in it. And so for me to do it, then I'm going to do it 100% because my name is on it and I'm representing it. And so that, to me, that's where I get my attaboys. It's not so much the recognition. It's like, I did a job and I loved it and it was fun. It was something that I enjoyed. I got great enjoyment out of it. So for me, doing it is the enjoyment. And so therefore the delivery has to be spot on, because to me, that is what I'm proud of. It doesn't mean that you have to say, Janet, good job, great job. I don't need that. I really don't. my friends will tell you, I am like, yeah, stop, don't say that, please. Like, you don't need to praise me. It was a team effort or whatever. So for me, it's that I did it, and it was successful, and I can check the box that that's what success looked like for me. And so that's for me where it comes from. Forgot the
Yeah.
second part of your question.
No, I think you really you nailed the essence of it. So I appreciate you giving us a little bit of insight, a little lens into what makes you tick.
Yeah, more comments. We appreciate that, Robert. We see them. We can't put them all on there, but you got to create a cadence of expectations or accountability is what I see him saying there. Earlier on, you said that you noticed that there was a difference between how men run organizations and how women run organizations. Can you? What have you noticed?
Oh boy, I am always resident to. I'm always hesitant to say this to a mass crowd.
We need to talk about it. So let me just 75% of the executives that I personally coach are women. So I've seen a lot, and they appreciate having my perspective, but I've seen a lot of challenges that they have, and I know Christian is also super empathetic, and this is an opportunity for us to increase our awareness, right? I mean, we're talking about how do we balance empathy and accountability. Well, it starts with awareness. How do you adapt your leadership style if you don't even know how you're showing up? Do you even know how you're impacting your team, because they're the ones that are impacting your customers? Are you doing that intentionally? So when we have this conversation, this is not about gender, beat ups, right? This conversation is meant to drive awareness. I mean, am I wrong, Christian?
No, spot on. Spot on.
So we're not looking for you to bash us. We're just looking, what are the differences and what's good and what's what could be better.
So here's what I would say. In my experience, I am finding more and more women are very relationship transactional driven, almost community. I feel like men, and I'm being very broad, are very transactional, matter of fact. And I'm putting it in my ecosystem, right? It's really interesting. So in the Jimmy Johns, my management structure is mostly men. In my virtual assistant agency, CEO Concierge, my structure is mostly women. So I do see the difference. But I also see the difference in dealing with other entrepreneurs, whether male or female, and also custom clients. And so what I've really noticed is that women, more so that I have encountered, are very relationship transactional. They're very like, hey, Jana, this is awesome. They take longer to make a decision. I've noticed they are really, it is a longer thought process. They're really weighing out the pros and cons. I see a hesitancy more, whereas the men are very like, what's this going to do for me? What's this going to cost? Okay, what's this going to say? What's this going to save me time and money and so forth? And then it's like, yes, I'm going to make that decision. They're coming from a two different decision-making process that I'm seeing. And I think it translates sometimes as to they're not sure, they're more aggressive. I think that's where the negativity thoughts come from, is that, no, I need to sit and noodle on this longer. I'm just not comfortable making this decision this quickly. Or, you know what, I want to talk to Spencer and Christian about this and see if they think it's the right idea, and bounce it off of people before I make a decision. And I think that is important.
I 100% agree. Now let me show you something. This is a tool that I use to assess teams. Okay, so I want you to look at the horizontal plane where it says productivity. Left, low productivity, high productivity. Productivity is all task related. Would you agree in what you're talking about? Now, you see high positivity and low positivity on this graph. That's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to think for just a moment. So, what happens when you have an organization that is all task and no relationship? You're in that bottom right quadrant, right? It's low positivity and high productivity. What is the problem with that?
You're a machine. You're just churning and burning. You're not it doesn't matter who's sitting in that seat.
Right.
I mean, that's what I take away from it.
So what I want you to now look at is I want you to look at the top left, low productivity but high positivity. Now, what's the problem with that? Nothing's getting done, but we all like each other, right? So what we need is a good balance of relationship and task, right? Okay. That's the challenge. That's the challenge that we have is where are we on that scale as an organization? And there are times actually where we need to be task oriented and listen, we're introducing new software, there's a merger acquisition, you're opening a new store, and sometimes we just got to grind it out, but we can't stay there. On the other hand, there's times to celebrate and recognize and slow down and have a party, but we just can't stay there. So where we ultimately want to get is a great balance of both of those things, task and relationship. It is the relationship that enables the sustainability of doing the task, in my experience. So if you're listening to this as a man, this is not a slam. It's, hey, if you just go after how's this affect the bottom line, you're going to lose people and it's going to affect your bottom line because of the turnover. But if you slow down and say, listen, I've got to put some time into this relationship, you're going to keep those people. It's going to affect your bottom line. Now, you can go too far in the relationship, just like we've shown, right?
Oh, yeah, because then they play you. I mean, that's what my team would say. Oh, they're playing us. And I'm like, yes. Okay, this is what we built. This is what you built. You built fun and no work. And this is what's happened now. There's so much that we could talk about, Christian. I want to shift gears into building teams. I think we've talked about building teams tangentially, but specifically, how do you balance the structure and flexibility, kind of what we've talked about, when managing remote teams across different businesses, right? Because we'll get into this VA thing here in a second, but how do you manage and develop remote teams and really keep them succeeding? Wow. Maybe it's because I have multiple locations that I'm used to bouncing all around. I really think because of COVID and Zoom and FaceTime and everything, that is allowed the workforce, whatever industries, to be global. I am a global business owner. It doesn't faze me that I have a team in the Philippines. I was on my director's call this morning on Zoom with them, and we WhatsApp and we use Pumble, which is similar to Slack. Like, I feel just connected to them in the Philippines that I do to my store people. And it takes a little bit more technology, but it doesn't have to feel disconnect. It's important for us to have support for them. I do have 16 people in the in-house support system that supports them, whether it's mental health, because you got to be careful when you're dealing with remote too, that mental health starts to be a play. That's one of the reasons I'm going next week, is to, have fun with them and team building for all of us to get together. They do stuff quarterly. We do team meetings quarterly, or in July, they went and met, and I think some went up to the beach and some went sailing. I don't remember, but they all got together without me. But they get together, and it's important that we're not just going again back to that box thing you had. We are spending time building relationships and getting to know them, but on top of the work. And so if that's what you meant by building the team, mechanically and setting them up was a complete different story than the actual managing of them.
Coming back to the little chart thing that you showed up there, Spencer, and we've been talking about, we look at those when it's framed that way, it looks like they're kind of opposing forces, but can't we look at those as complementary, right? Like,
Yes.
I use these tasks to build my relationships, and I use my relationships to complete these tasks, right? Like, I don't mean that in a manipulative way. I mean that in a sincere way. But ultimately, the joy that we feel comes from the relationships that we have. We've talked about it before, Spencer, that that Harvard study that's been going on for 80 plus years now, that's looking at things and taking into account all of those socioeconomic factors. The thing that really drives happiness is building meaningful relationships. And
Connection.
we can use our work to build those meaningful relationships. I mean, heck, that's what we have. I mean, Spencer and I have been friends for over 20 years, meeting in a work environment, building a relationship that has persisted over time there. And so I'm curious to get your take, whether it is in person or virtual, how you actually use the work to build the relationships, and vice versa, how the relationships help you deliver the work.
Well, I think I do it differently for the Jimmy Johns than I do for the virtual assistants. Um, the Jimmy Johns, it is me being present in the store. Um, I I clean the grossest thing first before I let anyone else clean it. If I'm in the store, I'm dealing with the
I
customer that's
call that the
calling to get.
bathroom principle, by the way.
Okay, good. I now know what it's called. Uh, with the virtual assistants, I mean, so I go in and have fun. I take off I try and I try and add levity to it. I try and be like, look, it's not as bad as you guys think it is, right? It's like, woo, let's just have fun. It's going to be a crazy day, guys. Let's have fun. That's all we can do. All we can do is put our head down and have fun, right? Um, and if I'm not freaking out that we're running out of bread, then you guys shouldn't be freaking out, right? And so I think it's just adding that to that and trying to build the goodwill. I mean, I do other things. We do, we do a newsletter. We do Employee of the Month. I do birthday $10 Walmart gift cards for even people I've not met, right? I send them out and I thank them for being with us. VAs, a little bit different. Because I do all the final interviews. So I've got to know them before they've even potentially been hired. A lot of our clients most of our clients are referrals. And so I've gotten to know them, and I've gotten to know the people that have referred us. And so for me, that's even more relationship driven. And because to understand as what they want and their needs and their where they want to live and what lane they want to live in, what's their passion, and what do they want to unload. Then the same with the VAs. To personality fits are 50%, if not more, important to us in this company than the Jimmy Johns, obviously. And so for me, it is making sure that both parties involved feel that they're equal partners. And then, hey, by the way, we're equal partners. We're supporting you. And so I think that's how I try to add to the levity for them.
Hey Christian, we need to take a little bit of time to mention our sponsor, and then I got a question that hopefully will be good for us. But this tool that I was sharing with you, that graph really comes from, how do you manage your teams and identify what the culture. You have different teams. We're talking about virtual teams, we have cross-functional teams, we have project teams, but really to find out where they are on that productivity positivity scale. And there's 7 elements of productivity, from team leadership, resources, decision making. You even talked about time it takes for decision making, all the way through alignment, goals, and all those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's 7 elements of positivity. That's trust, respect, camaraderie, communication, the ability to disagree and do it well,
Mm-hmm.
valuing diversity, and optimism. All of those things, those are what we're measuring and seeing where they are with that, so that we can really identify how, where they need to move to. And so we have this. This is brought to us by Team Coaching International, and it's an amazing tool that really measures where the team is at and where they need to go to be successful. And so we're offering through Team Coaching International a free team diagnostic, what's called a team leader view. So it's not a true diagnostic in the sense that everybody takes it, but you as the team leader take it, and you get a kind of a real sense from your perspective of how the team is doing. So we invite, if you're watching this, take a picture of that, ask for the team diagnostic. If you're listening, we'll put the link in the show notes. Okay, so back to business. Here's a question I have. What systems or mindset has helped you to kind of transition from a solopreneur to a scalable leader, of multiple businesses? I mean, what's behind this question is, what are the challenges that so many entrepreneurs face that prevent them from making that jump? And I know it has something to do with, accepting help. That's why you started this, concierge company. So what are some of those things that really helped you to move up that scale to where you are today?
Oh boy. For me, wearing too many hats, overwhelmness, not like being on the hamster wheel versus not being on the hamster wheel. How was I going to grow my company if I was constantly putting out fires? If all I was doing was putting out fires, obviously something was not working. It was exhausting. I was not happy. I was really not doing what I want to be doing. So it was like, why am I in business if I'm spending my time doing everything I don't want to be doing? Because I think, everyone thinks owning a business is awesome, right? Because you have the flexibility. You're your own boss. You're really not. Your employees are your boss or your customers. And so I really took the time, and this is where I focus with CEO Concierge, is I don't have to do it all, nor am I good at all of it. And I think the faster we realize that, the faster we can unload that, and then you're happier and you're spending the time growing your business where you want to be growing, and you have people that want to be growing it and that like to be doing those tasks that you're not good at or don't want to be doing. They love doing that. So put the people, it's the right seats in the right spot, right? So put the people that can do it, and you get to spend the time doing what you're good at and growing your company in the way you can grow it. And you have the people, cohorts, or whoever, growing your company with you, but doing what you don't like, what you're not good at. And I think that's what it took me, sitting down and being like, this isn't working. What do I need to do? And that's what it took.
So basically, you got to a point where you were sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yep. And in fairness, and I was talking to a client yesterday, a female client, and I've had this conversation with my family more recently this summer about my mental load as the woman of the house who comes home and works a full day at work and then comes home and everyone's asking me what's for dinner.
Jimmy
And
John's.
so, well, trust me, last night it was Jimmy John's because I was not doing anything. I was
Right.
like, I'm done. This day has been long. So, and my son rides his bike up and gets a sandwich and rides his bike home because one of our stores is in my neighborhood. So intentionally, by the way, my husband will tell you we bought this store so we can donate all of our money to all the schools in our school district. So, anyways, but I'm going off tangent. But I will tell you that, and this is where I like to sit because this is where the hat I wear, right? Is that for me as a female business owner, I do have to wear more hats. I do have the flexibility. My husband works full time. He's a stock analyst. He does not have the flexibility. So I could have a day of calls and a day of work. But guess what? I'm the one taking my 14-year-old to the orthodontist at 3:30. So I'm still carrying the personal load as well. So for me, I can't carry it all. And I brought my virtual assistant on to help me deal with the stuff that I just couldn't, I did not want to deal with anymore. I wasn't good at it. It was painful to me to deal with it. I'd rather be where I need to be. And she's good at it. So she's been with me 5 years. Like we have an understanding. She knows. So that's what it took. It took for me to be like, this is what I have to take off my plate. This is what I want on my plate. This is what I want to add to my plate. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't add things because I did, but it was stuff I wanted to add. It wasn't being forced upon me.
Well, Spencer, I've got one question to kind of wrap up on my thoughts before you ask your final questions and get to our lightning round. My question for you simply is, where is all this headed? So we've seen things change from the time that your grandmothers and mother were running real estate companies and CPA firms back in the 50s and 60s and 70s to where you are today, operating global companies with virtual assistants. I mean, that wasn't a thing before, but coming back to Kavi, beginning with the end in mind, where do you think this goes from here? Like in the next 5-10 years, what are you seeing? Where do you think it's going to be? Where's all this going to be heading?
So I had a conversation this week, a couple different times with different people about AI. Because I have been asked numerous times this last month. So I was like, okay, what's going on? How is AI going to disrupt my industries, whether it's Jimmy John's or the virtual assistant? How is automation going to interrupt my industries? And I'm taking the approach of embracing it. You got to embrace change. It happens every day. I think that there's so much uncertainty right now with the AI because it changes so much every day, and you can go down a rabbit hole on educating yourself, but then the next day it's going to change. So I think you have to be aware of the implications in your industry. So for me, the implications in the virtual assistant is AI. How's that going to change for me? So for me, that's where I look at, and how can I bring that into our company? And then for the Jimmy John's, it's harder right now because we are affected by the tariffs. I don't think, I mean, everyone's affected by the tariffs. So the uncertainty there is, I think, actually bigger because I just don't know where we're heading. And the other part of that is I also have the corporate arm because I am a franchisee. So if corporate decides to do something that as a franchisee I might not agree with, I probably don't have a choice. And so I have to, I write a fine line on that and maneuver where I can to have some autonomy. So I don't know if I'm answering your question right, Christian, but that's how I'm approaching it. As far as overall industry as far as entrepreneurs, I think that there's so much opportunity in the world, in the US, wherever you are. If you have an idea, really think about it, and because probably other people are thinking about it too. There's a reason why you keep coming up with this idea. I've had several ideas. I've tried to launch them. In fact, I tabled one in 2017, and a lady I talked to in St. Louis launched an app, not similar, but has some nuances. And I sent her my whole pitch deck. I said, here, I'm done. The company's gone. But what you said to me about where you're heading, here. And she's like, holy cow, you're giving me the whole pitch deck. I go, I'm not going to do it. By all means, take my research, my study, and use some of this if you decide. I think we have to get a little bit more open-minded about sharing stuff if we're not going to do it. Collaboration to help people grow. And so I hope that we see more female entrepreneurs in the next 5 to 10 years. I feel like I'm meeting a lot of female entrepreneurs, but that's also kind of the world I live in.
Well, I have, Christian, just I'm going to wrap my final question into the lightning round so that we can get through it, because we go through it just like one word or short one sentence answers, okay? And we're going to go really fast. You ready? So there's going to be 11 of them now since my last questions. Here it is. What's one thing women entrepreneurs need to stop apologizing for in business?
I would just say we need to stop apologizing, period.
Empathy or efficiency? You can only pick one to start a company with. Which one and why?
Efficiency, because if you're starting, it's just you. And things aren't going to get done if you don't do it.
First thing you do every morning?
Brush my teeth.
Your go-to podcast or book for leadership inspiration?
Oh my God, this changes all the time. Gosh, I should have had these questions ahead of time.
No, that's why we throw you on the spot. It's okay, just pick one. 7 Habits.
I'm going to go with Adam Grant. I'm going to go with Adam Grant right now.
Yeah, he's awesome. Most underrated leadership skill. I think we talked about it, but
lead by example.
Biggest myth about being a virtual assistant?
Ooh, that they can't do it. That they don't have the skill set.
Good. Because a lot of them are foreign, right? And that was actually a question I wanted to ask you so that's good. Favorite tech tool you can't live without? We're talking about AI.
I'm going to have to go with my Google Calendar. I used to be a paper planner. Like I had my paper planner carried in my handbook, and now it's like my calendar is my calendar.
Have you integrated that with AI yet?
I'm working on integrating it with Reclaim.
Okay.
Reclaim AI.
Good for you. Okay. One thing every CEO should stop doing immediately.
Things they don't like.
If your leadership style were a movie, what genre would it be?
Oh my God, it's going to be rom-com. Come on.
A funny romantic comedy, yes. Coffee or tea during crunch time?
Tea.
Awesome. Finish the sentence. Great leadership starts with
direction.
That's it, Christian.
Wow. Okay, that was awesome. And Jana, this has been a really insightful conversation, and so grateful to have you here with us. If people want to learn more about the CEO Concierge, or they want to learn more about women entrepreneurs or anything else related to this topic, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah. Jana, Jana, @ceoconcierge.com. through our website, through any social media, LinkedIn. I'm there. I would also say, if people want to talk to me about being a franchisee, I also have conversations with people that are also looking at maybe buying a franchise and what not to do and what to do, because we've done them both.
That's fantastic. My son is a franchisee. Maybe I'll have you connect with him. uh, that's
We
great.
can share pain stories and good
That's
stories.
right. You can share war stories. Spencer, you've been helping organizations build high performing teams. For decades, you've been coaching individuals to become effective leaders. How can people contact you?
Favorite way is LinkedIn. Message, just go to Spencer Horn and message me there. And Christian, I want so many people to know what you do for your clients and organizations, what you've done for me. How can people find you and just get to know you better?
Just look me up on LinkedIn, Christian Napier. You'll find me there. Happy to
He's an
connect.
innovator. He's an innovator with technology and uses it in very, very powerful ways to help companies tell the stories of their of their organization. So you got to reach out to him for that.
Well, thank you, Spencer. And thank you, Janet. And thank you, viewers and listeners. We're so grateful to have you join us on our journey. Please like and subscribe to our podcast, and we'll catch you again soon.